Daughter. I made a daughter out of things I had lying around. She wriggled, ran off, her frame bigger with each bound. Soon her shoulders were at tree level, then her hips, then her dimpled knees, now as big as trees themselves. When the tree line reached mid-calf and the clouds were swirling at her shoulders, she grinned a grin like a ship's hull. "What did you eat?" I asked. Everywhere she stepped a crater. The moon was near one of her barrettes, her hair indigo in the sky. Her baby nose loomed grotesque above me, and I was afraid of her the way you fear the very first newborn you ever hold. She whirled around, felling trees with the wind from her skirts. She laughed. She swallowed birds. A plane crashed into her ear and burst into a mushroom cloud. A panther bounded out of the smoke, landed on her shoulder, then climbed cat backwards down her dress and down her massive legs, leaving pin lines of blood with his claws. He leapt over the green wreckage of her footprints and bounded past me, trailing reeking deer intestines from his mouth. I hurled a rock behind him. I begged the witch baby to come down. She walked into the ocean, tried to scoop the moon out of it with her plump hands, surfaced holding an ecosystem of jellyfish and hammerheads, dropped them back into the devastated ocean. The bodies split open, battered, floating, picked upon by swirling sea life. She waded further, unearthing crusty carcasses of ships, following the moon's orbit farther and farther out to sea. Soon she was shoulder deep. The panther stalked up like a shadow, bounded down the mountain from which I watched her, seemed to fly in all of his stench and fearsomeness. "I can save her," I insisted. "I can save her," he whispered back in my tiny voice. He dropped into the ocean, paddled in circles around her, still trailing those dead deer parts. The sharks came. They nipped at her legs. She cried for me, splashing out of the water. An entire city was washed away. She came toward me, an entire iceberg in her hand, and as she approached the mountain, she began to shrink with every step. She would not make it up to me. When the trees came to her ankles, she released the iceberg. Water flushed all the way up to the clouds. The seafloor was dry below, my soaked, crying daughter in front of it, her braids drooping. She stared at the dry coral below, where she had snagged a sock on the frame of a whale picked clean by deep-sea things. She came toward me, shrinking, and I fell down the mountain toward her. The trees came up to her knees, to her hips, to her shoulders, and finally above her head. She smiled, and those fat cheeks grew, the normal way a child's cheeks grow when they smile, and I took her hand. From a distance, I could see the stinking panther trying to follow behind us. "Don't even think about it," I said. He bit out her throat. Indo-European sacrifice rituals and blind dates, or why I will never find a husband. In Irish horse sacrifices, it is the king who fucks the mare, not some four wives touching labia to a dead horse's dick. Strangulation in some mammals, such as horses and humans, ends in ejaculation, a horse whose eyes bulge before they saw through the massive neck. Female ejaculation still unattested. If you have ever seen two horses fuck, you understand fear. If you have ever seen a horse murdered, you understand sex.